evening. On Straight Talk tonight, we have the University of the South Pacific Vice-Chancellor and President Paul Ahluwalia, who is currently based in Nauru. A lot being said about USP, and especially the Vice-Chancellor Paul Ahluwalia, why he's operating out of Nauru. Tonight, we'll be speaking to him about USP operations, about how USP is coping, how the Vice-Chancellor is coping and running operations from for University of the South Pacific, the main campus, of course, based right here in Fiji at Laucala Bay, and also regarding USP's plans going into the future. First of all, Vice-Chancellor Ahluwalia, thank you very much on behalf of our listeners and viewers for accepting this invitation to come on our show.
Vijay, thank you very much for having me. It's always a pleasure to talk to you.
Now, Vice-Chancellor Ahluwalia, just first of all, we're still into the second wave of COVID-19, and many countries around the world have been affected, including the Pacific Island countries who are the member countries of USP. How is the university coping with this second wave of COVID-19?
Vijay, first of all, I want to reach out to your listeners and really, sympathize and empathize with the COVID situation in Fiji. I know that many people are doing it really hard, and I do hope that you've turned the corner, or you've kind of reached a certain place where things will become easier. But I know that it's been a very tough time for all Fijians, and really my prayers are with everybody, especially those who've lost lives, or people who've lost family, and including those who've been really sick. Our own staff at USP has been affected. We've had several people who've passed away, but also we've had several people who've been severely ill. But I believe things are getting better, and I take note of the announcement last night that there will be more easing of restrictions. Having said that, I think Fiji is really the only country where we've been affected this year by COVID, and we've continued throughout that time with remote learning. But we've also tried to assess the situation whilst committing to those countries and those COVID-19 protocols of all our member countries. So really, we've continued remote learning. We had to start that very early. We had some practice in 2020. But in 2021, we really had to go full bore into that. And our regional campuses have continued to work with fairly strict measures, although our Fiji campuses are still under lockdown. And I'll be meeting immediately after this meeting. I have a meeting with my management team to try and work out what the change in government regulations means for us, and what it means for us to open our campuses in Fiji. But of course, staff at all our campuses are continuing to work from home, whereas essential staff attend to tasks at their office. This is in Fiji under strict COVID-19 measures. So I think given the circumstances, I think we're handling the situation very well. I'm very, very proud of the USP staff. They are absolutely adhering to government policies. And they're staying safe, and we're trying to minimize damage to our staff and students.
Vice-Chancellor Ahluwalia, just in relation to definitely everybody's going through challenges. You've talked about remote learning, etc. What are some of the challenges that you've managed to overcome in relation to COVID-19 and your successes during this time?
So I think two things I'd like to say on that, Vijay. First, I think we set up some measures because we know that one of the big challenges in the Pacific, not only in Fiji but in some of our other islands, is connectivity, and the fact that our students find it difficult to connect. Data is difficult, is expensive. So we've done a lot of back-end services to make sure we've got a lot of experience. We probably have one of the best IT departments, not only in the region, but around, throughout Australia and New Zealand, which benchmark with Australia and New Zealand. We really do invest a lot of our income into IT services. And I think we've tried to create some out-of-the-box thinking. For example, we created Outreach Commons, in the Lami area, in that corridor, and then in the Nusori corridor. But then we expanded that to Lotoka, and we've made sure that if students can't come to USP, then USP has to reach out. And I think that's no small part in the fact that earlier this year, we were ranked by the WURI ranking, which is the World University Rankings for Impact, number 11 in the world for crisis management. And that was really recognizing how we managed the crisis around COVID, principally, but also how we've had to manage a deep financial crisis.
Now, just the question in relation to you are based in Nauru at the moment. I believe eventually you will move to Apia, Samoa. What are the challenges you're facing running the Vice-Chancellor's operations from Nauru?
Vijay, I'm just absolutely amazed that I expected there would be more difficulties, but I guess we've all become quite used to it. The university has effectively been closed since April. So everything is done online. It's done exactly how we're dealing with things. We've been able to make sure that my office in Lotala provides the support that I need. I have them on the telephone. We have our own internet telephone system where we can speak to each other. I probably spend 3/4 of my working day on Zoom in meetings. And so it's been absolutely seamless. There hasn't been any difficulty really. And I think, we have a great team back in Fiji. So there's been absolutely no issues. So I'm in Nauru because, of course, it takes time to get things like work permit sorted out to go to Samoa. There's a real difficulty getting flights both out of Nauru. There's only one flight a fortnight. And then, of course, there's quarantine regulations, both in Australia, which is where I'll have to transit through into Apia. And there are very few flights. In fact, there are virtually no flights going into Samoa, especially since New Zealand has been in lockdown. Their major air travel is coordinated through New Zealand. So on both counts, one, I'm learning a lot more being in a small regional campus of the university. I don't think any vice-chancellor would have spent the amount of time I have here. And it's given me a real sense of the difficulties and the tasks and challenges that our students in the region face and how we're going to fix that. So I think if anything, this has been a godsend sojourn for me, where I can really understand what's happening in the university and try and come up with some solutions.
In relation to grants, of course, USP relies on member country grants, and it is public knowledge already that Fiji maintains that the grants will not be released to USP. Can you tell us how is the USP affected by no grants being given to the university by the Fijian government?
Look, I think I've gone on record in an interview with the Fiji Times, where I've made it clear that of course this affects us. This is not something that we're just taking in our stride. It's really affecting us. But I think remarkably, if I look at since 2019, we have taken an effective cut of about $63.1 million in non-payment to the university from the Fiji government. And of course, that is taking its toll. But we've been very careful. We've used the pandemic in a way because we're not traveling, we're not doing certain things. Our staff have been remarkable. They've foregone any pay increases. They've taken cuts in their annual leave. A whole raft of measures have had to come into place to be able for the university to function. And that has happened really because of the phenomenal resilience of our staff and also just very good planning. And I think we've managed so far. But of course, this cannot go on forever. And I'm hopeful that our council can find a solution to this. It seems intractable problem. But when problems are that difficult, Vijay, that's when leaders really come together. That's when, people really come together and realize that things have to change and what needs to be done. So I'm very hopeful. I have no, truck with the government at all. I think, the only thing that I have ever done was that I wrote a paper, which, I had to alert my council about, and it went through our executive committee, saying that there was what I considered, these were, what I had alleged was that there was mismanagement, and that, this was something that I needed to bring into the attention of the council, because at the end of the day, once I knew what was happening, if I had kept quiet and tried to sweep it under a carpet, I think I would have been not honest to my own ethics and my own values, but equally, I would not be a CEO who's worth anything. That's your job. It's your job to call out things when they're not going right. And so I think, BDO did a report which showed that the allegations I made were absolutely correct. And I think, although people have tried to sweep it away and say, oh, there's nothing there, I think the statement which I read, I think it was last week or the week before, by the Nauru president in Nauru Parliament, clearly shows that there were serious issues at the university and that we needed to address those, which is why a commission was appointed, and the commission has done a remarkable job of reforming policies and rewriting policies and procedures, which we're now going through the system to get through, so that the university is better placed and it's far more resilient, for the future.
We'll go into the allegations very soon, but just USP Students Association, they released a statement this week. They say they are concerned about their education and future. They even said that the Fijian Attorney General seems to be hell-bent to destroy their future. We got comments from the Attorney General, and he says their stand remains that Fiji will not release the grants to USP until the investigations are conducted, independent investigations against you. What is your message, first of all, to the students who have made the statement?
So look, I think I can really sympathize and empathize with the students. It's obvious there's a frustration for the students. I mean, while we've tried to make sure that we don't affect the education of our students, of course, not being able to invest in our facilities, not being able to invest in our buildings, not being able to invest in some of the key things that we wanted to do is affecting our students. And I think, that's their frustration is coming out. I'm in awe of our students. These are students who are really, really committed to the university. They're committed to their education. And I think, I really can't comment on what the Attorney General is doing. One, I don't have parliamentary privilege. I might say different things if that was the case. But really effectively, the council is my employer. The USP Council is my employer, and the council has done its due diligence. I've abided by the instructions of the council, and in my work, the council has a final verdict on my position and on my contract. And, I've accepted the council's decision. And any questions around that decision, I think, in terms of this and the decision by the Attorney General about doing independent investigations, there have been to date 5 different investigations into me. And on each count, council has cleared me. So in fact, all the allegations that the Attorney General has raised are predominantly within the KPMG Striker report, which happened after I left Fiji. And they, again, council said, well, there's nothing here that gives us cause to believe that there's something wrong. They didn't say that about the BDO report, mind you. The BDO report was a very different kettle of fish. So I think just being sure So I said earlier, I'm committed to doing what the council has done for me and placed its faith in me, and I am continue to doing the job.
Just for the simplification of information for people, let's talk about the BDO report. You said it was a different kettle of fish. Of course, you came in as the head of the university at the time. There have been comments made that how that whole incident was handled. Of course, you were saying you took it to the USP Council. The BDO report came out. Generally speaking, based on the allegations that you took up to the USP Council against certain USP staff, what were some of the things that the BDO report said after that independent investigation that needed to be fixed immediately?
So let me say, first of all, that you know, it wasn't something that I took very lightly to write a report like that. But I think when I was appointed as Vice-Chancellor, I had 2 months as Vice-Chancellor designate, during which time many whistleblowers came to see me at the university. And when they came, that's on the basis of which I began to write this paper. I then knew that I had to do something. And so because it involved very senior people in the organization, you know, I had 2 choices. Either I could report it directly to, you know, because most of the allegations were in Fiji, I would report it directly to a government agency. But I decided the correct thing was to go to my employer, and that's where I took it. And the allegations were not just made in terms of, this is what people said, this is what happened. The allegations were accompanied by 500 pages, more than 500 pages of evidence, which actually gave BDO a great place to start. You know, none of the allegations were made just on the basis of you know, just an allegations paper of 11 pages, I think it was. It was accompanied by a lot of evidence. And that evidence is what I think swayed council to say that regardless of anything, it wanted its own investigation so that these things could be dealt with by council and not by any single country. So I think that's the first point you should observe. The second point, I think, is that the allegations, like, I mean, I can give you some of the examples. People were, you know, were promoted without any, well, not even promoted, were given jobs without even going through any process. Their salaries went through the roof. They were beyond anything that the university had ever imagined. I think BDO called it the gravy train, that USP had a gravy train. I think BDO also said this was a cash cow for certain people. I think BDO also, you know, said that there was a tremendous amount of wastage they couldn't understand. There was, including there were attempts at tax fraud, you know, and those tax fraud have happened if it hadn't been for me intervening personally to prevent that, because that's my job. Even though, you know, if I'd let that tax fraud happen, it would have become a criminal offense. But I was not interested in that. My job was to protect the institution. There were things like somebody was a director of an institute, and not only was he claiming the director's salary, but he also claimed the deputy director's salary because he said he was doing both jobs, and that was being allowed. There were people who, you know, were a lower level, middle level manager who, you know, asked for for her position to be reclassified, was reclassified, and then paid 4 years of back pay, 4 or 5 years of back pay. Nobody could understand why these things were being done, and it didn't stop there, Vijay. It's not like after that I haven't uncovered things. I could probably write 4 more papers on the basis of what I found post the paper when I wrote. There was real serious rot in the organization. And this kind of back pay business, and some of those people are the ones who are screaming and shouting up and down, you know, has continued in the organization. It's going to take time. I'm confident that I will keep finding things, because this was a systematic rot which was like a cancer on the organization.
Now, there's allegations of mismanagement, abuse, and favoritism that have been made against you by the Fijian Attorney General in Parliament. There was a statement made in Parliament recently. What are your comments regarding that?
Well, he has parliamentary privilege and he is acting on government. My council has spoken. I think, as I said earlier, it's the council that you need to direct that question to rather than me. Because the council, as I've said, there have been 5 separate allegations, 5 separate investigations, and council has time and time cleared me. I think you need to think about, I think I'll let your viewers decide, is the council of 11 countries so biased that it doesn't, of 12 countries so biased that it's ignoring what one person is saying. So I think but I think you need to address that question to our council.
A lot has been said about, and again, it's to simplify information. You're talking about there 5 independent investigations done after those allegations against you were made, and all those 5 investigations have cleared you, just for a simplification of information for people?
Yes. I mean, I can tell you, they've done financial investigations. There were allegations leveled by the Pro-Chancellor. And the allegations keep appearing time and time again into the other things. And so by the time they got to the 33 allegations against me, a special committee of council was appointed to look into them. They looked into it, they cleared me, and they won't stop. And so then it went on after that, and they were then rolled all with new allegations into the Striker report, which KPMG did. And that, you would have read the press release from the council. As I said, I've never been present at council when these deliberations are going on, because, I was told that you can't be there. So it's not like I'm influencing council. This is council making its own independent decisions. These are 12 sovereign, there are 11 other countries, and I think council has time and time again as a majority, said we don't find anything wrong there.
Why do you think that even though 5 investigations, as you've said, and independent investigations even done by KPMG, if they've cleared you, that Fiji still wants independent investigations and still do not accept you as the Vice-Chancellor of USP?
I think that's a question you need to ask the Fiji government. Vijay, I can't speak on their behalf. They obviously felt that I needed to leave the country and they deported me. So, that's on the record. That's what they did. I was trampled, my human rights were trampled. My wife and I are continuing to endure trauma as a result of that. But, that's the reality. But I don't think that's a question that's really one for me to answer, Vijay.
The suggestions that you had political connections in Fiji, allegations have been made against you. What do you have to say to the viewers and listeners?
I think the viewers and listeners can make up their own mind. I know that I am not a Fijian. I have zero interest in Fijian politics. I don't even have a vote. I'm only interested in the university. And so, it's funny, I've been in other countries and I've had absolutely no trouble. So I think it's for your viewers to make their decision on what they think about those allegations.
What is your message to all the staff, students, and member countries of the university and its future based on the challenges being faced? Of course, you saying you have managed to survive because of the current situation. The grants definitely from Fiji is needed as things normalize, as you progress. You cannot have a major funder of the university not giving grants, and USP cannot operate as it should. What is your message to the staff, students, and member countries about it?
So Vijay, let me start with that first, right? The first thing is that these grants are not just given as a gift. These grants are worked out by the University Grants Committee, in which all the countries sit together and they negotiate and they say, how will the university be funded? And the grants are given to subsidize the fees of each country's students. So because about 70% of the students from at USP come predominantly from Fiji and study in Fiji and in fact also at our other campuses, that grant is meant to subsidize the Fijian students. Similarly, all the other countries make grant contributions, which subsidize their students. But then on top of that, all the other countries also send students to Fiji to study and pay for them. And so for every dollar that in the grant that we get out of the Fiji government, there's a multiplier of 9 that the Fiji government or the Fiji, not the government, the country gets 9 times in return for what it invests. So in terms of the grant that we get from Fiji, 10 million goes straight back into the coffers as a pay as you earn. 17 million goes into FNPF. So there's a substantial, and then 2 million, I think, goes into VAT. So there's a substantial payback from the direct grant. It's almost a neutral grant, if I can put it that way. And this is not something that I did. This was something that the previous administration's work had shown. We've just updated that with data from 2012 to 2020, and it shows what the multiplier is. So I think first of all, let's be very clear what the grant does, what the grant is for. And so I think it's really affecting Fijian students. So we've been very careful not to start differentiating between students and trying to say, because for the last 3 years there's been inadequate funding. We've had to deal with this in a very systematic way at our council. So that's the first thing I wanted to clear up, the misconception about what the grant does and what the grant is for. And it's paid proportionately. It's based on a formula with students, and the formula was agreed to by all the countries in 2016. So the second thing you asked, your question was, what is my message to the staff and students and stakeholders of the university? My message is very clear. This is the most successful regional organization that we have. It's endured for 53 years. It's a fantastic organization. Many of the region's leaders have studied at USP, have very strong connections. And this is a university that on a very, when we compare it to Australia, New Zealand, the UK, or the US, the funding per student is so minimal, and yet the results and the quality that we're producing is quite outstanding. Now, the very fact that we were ranked in the Times Higher Education to be amongst the top universities of the world, and whether we want to debate whether it was 10%, we were actually better, but I'm happy to talk about that in a minute. But I think the fact that we were ranked shows that we have quality. Now, to do that, I want to really thank our staff, past and present, who've worked so hard to get there. Administrators like me are facilitators. They are, although I'm a strong researcher myself, and some of my work would have featured in this, the majority of the work was done and is done by our academic staff for this particular ranking, given the citations that are vital, et cetera. So I think that the message is that if we stay strong in what we're doing, which is essentially making sure that we put our students first and make sure that our students continue to be our focus, and that we're focused on a values-led education, that I don't think we can go wrong. I think we will continue to prosper, and we will continue to work, around how we continue to provide a quality education, how we provide the right learning environment and teaching quality for our students, and how we make sure that our students are ready, with measuring our student outcomes in terms of graduate outcomes, and saying, are they work ready? Are they ready to work? And we keep listening, and we pay a lot of attention to what employers say. So my message is, this is not easy for us, but we're so committed to making sure that USP remains the premier institution in the region.
My question in relation to the Fijian government, of course, you are currently working out work permits and in transition from Nauru to Apia. Is there any discussion expected? Of course, even with Council's help, can the relationship between you and the Fijian government come to a place where you mend and move forward for the benefit of the students in the university in the future? Do you see some of those steps being taken from your end?
So Vijay, two things about this. It's a very good question. I mean, for many years, about 10 years, I had a UNESCO chair in reconciliation and transnational diasporas. So reconciliation is very central to my thinking, first of all. And second of all, I'm a person of faith. So, my responsibilities and the things that I respond to, I don't worry as much about who I'm responding to here. I always think about, what will my maker say to me when the day of reckoning comes? So of course, if you're a person of faith, forgiveness is a very key element, of your beliefs. So even when I was being deported, I told the people who were deporting me, and as you know, whisked away in the middle of the night, I told them, they were predominantly Christians in the vehicle. And I said to them, as you're doing this to me, I think my wife has written about this and recalled this incident. I said to them, just think of Christ. When he was on the cross, all he said is, Father, forgive them, for they do not know any better. So for me, I have no problem with forgiving people. I have no truck with anybody. I just want to be left alone to do my job. And I think it's up to people to determine how that can happen. My door is always open. I actually have attempted many times to try and see, when I was in Fiji, members of the government, to try and make sure that it wouldn't get to where it is today. And my door will be open. As I said, I don't have any recrimination against anybody. The only person who gets damaged if you hold recriminations and if you hold grudges is you. So I don't have any grudges against anybody. And of course, if there's a way to make things work better, I will be the first person to be there at that meeting. I'm not sure it'll be happening in Fiji, but I'll be there wherever it is.
Let's see how that goes. And of course, USP continuing with their operations. Can you please confirm details on a virtual open week that USP has organized and the benefits for those wanting to join the university and benefits of having a virtual open week?
So look, Vijay, of course, open week was always something that we really, open day actually was something that was really important to us. We wanted to showcase our university to prospective students, but we also wanted to share some of the great things that happen at our university. So like, I'll give you an example. Our engineering students have developed a ventilator. Now, here we are, we're in a developing nation. For our students to develop something so significant, right? And I think if we can have the right kind of investment behind it, and get people to invest in this, it could be commercialized. So that's an example of some of the work that's being done. But so the open day was always about sharing what we do at USP so that the community gets a sense. Because I've always had the feeling that universities aren't ivory towers. They're there for the community. They're part of the community. They're living space. And we want the community to be involved in the university. So, whenever, even in Nauru, when we have events at the university, it really warms my heart because it means we're doing the right thing. So I think what Virtual Open Day was the second best thing to allow people from everywhere to be able to see what happens if you can come to USP and what the potential is. I think the added advantage was that sometimes we were becoming very, Lothala focused. And now I think we can actually, the use of the remote and the virtual has meant that we can really reach out across the region. And I think the feedback we've had has been fantastic. Many of our participants have had interactions with USP staff, and they've been really informed by Zoom sessions in the comfort of their homes during this pandemic about the premier university and what it has to offer. So I'm actually very proud of our staff that they were able to make that transition. It's not always easy, especially in the pandemic, and where our own people have also, many have succumbed to the virus.
We talk about achievements now, recent achievements of USP. Of course, statements have been made in relation to that. You touched on the ranking, statements made in Fiji that USP is misleading the people. Even the Consumer Council has come out and said that USP should not mislead people in relation to its ranking. What's your comments as the Vice-Chancellor?
Yeah, I think, look, I think sometimes, Vijay, you would have to say that anything that I do or anything that I am associated with the success of the university, it's always going to be criticized, because it's a cheap shot to make. Now, we haven't misled anybody. I can direct you to at least 20 websites, but I'll name 2 or 3 here that I'd like your listeners to immediately, if they're on the internet, to go to www.adelaide.edu.au. That's the University of Adelaide. It says we're in the top 1% of universities in the world. What's the nominator and the denominator? The numerator is that they are ranked 111 in the world, and the denominator is that they're saying there's over 10,000 universities. They just said over 10,000 universities in the world. Go to La Trobe University. It's in the rankings at about 250. Same thing. They've said they're in the top 1%. And I mean, the list is endless. Even if you go to the #1 university in the rankings, which is Oxford University, according to the Times Higher Education, and it has had that position for 3 to 4 years, Oxford says that it's #1 in the world. Now, and what basis is Oxford saying that? Oxford didn't score as highly on its teaching scores. It didn't score as highly on its research scores. And it didn't score as highly compared to Harvard, which is #2 on the 3 main pillars, but it did exceptionally well on international outlook and exceptionally well on industry income. So it beats Harvard because of that. So, but, it claims it's #1 in the world. And it's all because of the numerator and the denominator. And if you look at it, it's called the Times Higher Education World Rankings. It's not something else. The name is World Rankings. So, this is, of course, all universities want to have a little bit of a, way to market their university. So when we actually looked at it, when we looked at the numerator and the denominator, we probably fell between 5 and 6% of world universities. So I was very cautious. I said to our marketing team, I said to my management team, let's be cautious. Let's say we're in the top 10%, because that's where we are. So whichever methodology, even if we just say we're ranked, we pretty much fill into that space. So I think, if the Consumer Council thinks that we're lying, we'll have to defend our position, and we'll produce the evidence of how we arrived at this. But in the very first press release that we sent, there was an asterisk, which was like a footnote, which made it very clear where we stood and how the methodology of what we claimed we were was. So I think, as I said, this is more about attacking PAL, attacking the Vice-Chancellor, rather than attacking, rather than letting the, in another interview, I've made this very clear, that rather than letting the university have its moment of glory, they're all these detractors. And I wonder why, the attention hasn't been made about all the other universities that do this.
My final question, of course, you are in preparation mode of how things will be after the second wave of COVID. Fijian government making announcements last night in relation to changes in tertiary institutions when they can open up, so relaxation of restrictions, etc. What are some of the immediate and future plans USP that you're looking at that you'd like to share with our listeners and viewers?
So two things on this. As I said, immediately after this interview, I'll be meeting with my senior management team so we can start working out some strategies about reopening the university. That's something that's very important to us, and making sure that that first and foremost both our students and our staff are safe. And of course, we'll be looking at all the protocols that have to be in place for things to open. So that will take some time. It can't be this is a large organization. We can't manage that just overnight. It'll take us some time, although we've put a lot of mitigating plans in place over time. So we will be debating that today. Particularly our occupational health people will be with us in the meeting to assist us to think through how we work through this program. But I think on the broader thing is that currently we are refreshing our strategic plan. So it's early days for us for that. But I mean, I think the core business of the university will always be teaching and learning, research, our regional campuses, our work as a crop agency. So those are the key pillars that we'll continue to work through. And we will tweak them where we think COVID-19 has really impacted on our business and how we improve our students. As I said, if we didn't have students, we wouldn't have a university. So our primary focus is always on our students, and we continue to work in that way.
That's USP Vice-Chancellor and President Paul Ahluwalia speaking from Nauru on Straight Talk. Thank you, Mr. Ahluwalia, for accepting the invitation again. And any final message before we finish off?
Thank you, Vijay. I think the final message for your listeners is, I have found immense, support and love from many Fijians. They keep writing to me. They keep, on social media, on Twitter, etc., as do our staff and students. And I just want to say how thankful I am. And I thank the Lord for, giving me the opportunity to serve as Vice-Chancellor of this university. And it is serving, it's not leading. I mean, obviously you lead, but if you lead through service, it's a different kind of leading. And I think if I keep getting the blessings of everybody, I'm sure that together we can build an even better USP. I think this is a great institution, and when I leave it, want to make sure that I leave it in better shape than I inherited it. Thank you.
Thank you, and that's Straight Talk for this week. Until next week, good evening.